Texas heads to Ames with a chance to pick up their first double-digit win season since 2018. Thank you for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 game preview. Got Chip Brown here with me. Chip, always good chatting with you. Let's go ahead and break this game down. 7 o'clock kickoff in Ames Central Time this Saturday. Their last meeting last year, Texas narrowly escapes 24-21 at home. Really an Xavier Hutchinson drop away from losing that game in Austin. Iowa State has won 3 out of the last 4 against the Longhorns in Ames. It's a tough place to play, especially at night. And last but not least, Texas picks up their second win season since 2009 with a victory tonight. We just mentioned the other one was back in 2018. All right, Chip. Biggest storyline going into this game is the fact that Jonathan Brooks is out for the season with a torn ACL. That's a huge knock to the Texas offense and especially their run game. So now your eyes kind of turn to really foremost CJ Baxter, but a little bit of Jaden Blue as well. What are you expecting the ground attack to look like for Texas going forward, especially in a game where Texas is going to run the ball a lot? Remember, Bijan Robinson had 28 carries against the Cyclones last year.
Protect the football. First and foremost, protect the football because this game is going to be limited on possessions. If Iowa State plays the way they want to play, they're kind of like a 4 corners offense on a basketball team. They want to limit possessions. They want to make you have to drive by dinking and dunking and running 10, 12, 14 plays to get into scoring position. I think CJ Baxter and Jaden Blue can do enough for this Texas offense, but they are not Jonathan Brooks, and that's no slight to them. That's just a credit to how special Jonathan Brooks is. I mean, look at how many tackles he's broken this season, 63 forced missed tackles. Look at what he's done catching the football. Last week against TCU, a 73-yard catch and run off of a screen where 71 of those yards was all Jonathan Brooks. And he's special. So you want to see CJ Baxter and Jaden Blue relax, play their game, not press. That's a lot to ask going into Ames, Iowa. It's going to be a tough environment. It's going to be cold. But look, this team is 2 wins away from playing in the Big 12 championship and reaching their goals. This team should be on fire to play this game. And as Jalen Ford said this week, there should have been an alarm going off in every single player on the Texas team when they heard the news that Jonathan Brooks was going to be out for the rest of the season with his torn ACL. Because it means everyone has to step up and do a little bit more to help Texas win games without him.
Jonathan Brooks coming into the season, first of all, didn't even earn the starting spot out of camp. Steve Sarkisian named Cedric Baxter the starter, and then he gets a little banged up, and the rest is history with JB. We were not expecting Brooks to put up the numbers anywhere near he did. Maybe, Chip, that's just me, but in comparison,
I predicted that he would run for 1,200 yards.
No, you did predict that, and that was very well done. But as far as me, when you see Bijan Robinson, what he did last year in his years at Texas, you weren't expecting anything close to that a year removed, with Jonathan Brooks really getting his first major year of play. And he completely surpassed my expectations, I guess she met Chip's and still exceeded those. But nonetheless, it's going to be interesting to see what Cedric Baxter can do. Has he matured enough throughout this season to be leaned upon in the most important stretch in Texas football in quite some time?
Yeah, and the key is going to be his blitz pickup, his pass protection, Tommy, because as you know, you want to run the ball, you got to show you can pass protect and protect the football. And with a quarterback who is still far from 100%, who cannot afford to take hits in Quinn Ewers with the AC joint sprain in his throwing shoulder, that's going to be first and foremost. Protect the football and protect your quarterback with your blocking responsibilities in pass protection.
Absolutely. And the good news for Texas is offensive line keeps Quinn Ewers clean against TCU. So hopefully they can carry that over as far as Texas is concerned. Moving on now, kind of defensively, Steve Sarkisian this week really upset that his defense was giving up big chunk plays to TCU. We saw it especially in the second half. Chip, I don't know about you, but I think the secondary for Texas improved mightily, or at least they looked the part in the first half of that TCU game. Josh Hoover throws for less than 100 yards and he gets picked off. That's what we wanted to see. They were better in coverage, communicated much better, and it resulted in success defensively. Now, in the second half, they kind of revert to their old selves. Hoover goes for over 200 yards and throws 2 touchdowns. They're missing tackles, and they're just letting TCU's wide receivers run all over him. So the question is, what goes into playing that way consistently? Is that a change being made? Is that Steve Sarkisian getting too comfortable and calling off the dogs a little bit? How does Texas play a full 4 quarters of good coverage like that?
Well, I think for one, we've seen that when Texas gets up by 20 points, they're playing more zone coverage and they're trying to keep things in front of them and they're not trying to give up the big play. I think we saw that against Houston. We saw that against K-State. And obviously against K-State, Texas turned the ball over twice in its own end of the field, giving K-State short field scoring opportunities that they were able to cash in. They scored 3 touchdowns in 2.5 minutes. Against TCU, Steve Sarkisian's a little bit to blame because he didn't run the ball enough in the third quarter, and the passing game didn't work out either. And so TCU ended up with the football for 11 minutes in the third quarter, which I think the Texas defense started to get exhausted. And so that in the fourth quarter, they're missing tackles and TCU's sensing the comeback. They're motivated. They're adrenalized. Texas's defense is, looking around for guys to make the play. That's not when Texas operates at its highest level. They have to stay aggressive. They have to stay the hunters. Steve Sarkisian talks about that all the time. Okay. And I think he said that this week. That's what I heard, is that he was, he said, we've got to play tighter coverage. This is what he said coming off of the 5-7 season. We have to find big corners who can, man up and play press coverage and disrupt routes. And so I'm expecting to see that throughout this game against Iowa State. But I don't think Texas is going to have a big lead to squander this week, Tommy. I think that this is going to be close throughout. So Texas isn't going to have any choice but to be their usual aggressive selves. Now, look, they're going up against a freshman quarterback in Rocco Becht, who's been good. He's gotten better throughout the year. Make sure you read our man Eric Henry at horns247.com, his story about Rocco Becht, the son of former Jets and Tampa Bay Buccaneers and West Virginia tight end Anthony Becht. And he's a fighter, scrapper, and he can run. He can run a la Dylan Gabriel. So this is a game where Texas is going to have to have eyes on Rocco Becht, and I feel a whole lot better about this defense facing that challenge now with the Mo Blackwell package. We saw that against K-State's running quarterbacks, where you've got Jahdae Barron, Mo Blackwell, and Jalen Ford all at that linebacker level with Anthony Hill up on the line. And so I think they can get after Rocco Becht, and they need to, because in the games where Iowa State has lost in the Big 12, Rocco Becht threw pick sixes. He threw a pick six almost on the first play of the game against Oklahoma, and then he threw a pick six early in the second quarter against Kansas. Those are the only 2 teams to beat Iowa State, and they did it by scoring without Iowa State's defense on the field. That would help tremendously for Texas, because John Haycock, the defensive coordinator at Iowa State, it's incredible to me. He hasn't gotten like lower level head coaching jobs. He's an older guy. Maybe he's done with, trying to become a head coach, but this guy has been a monster because from year to year to year, it doesn't matter who the players are. They get this defense to play at a precision level, and it's very difficult. Quinn Ewers, baby, he saw it last year. He knows how difficult it is, but this, Texas defense can help the Longhorns by turning Rocco Becht over, maybe even scoring in this game, Tommy.
And that is not an easy task either. Iowa State's done a phenomenal job of taking care of the football. They're number 10 in the nation right now in turnover margin. They've only turned the ball over 8 times this season, 7 picks and 1 fumble. Their defense, on the other hand, has done a fantastic job creating those turnovers. And it's because of that system that you mentioned, Chip. So that'll be an interesting part of the game that ultimately really could and should decide the victor of this matchup. Chip, you talked a little bit earlier about how Jalen Ford said that alarms were going off inside Texas players' heads after Jonathan Brooks went down. They know that they're going to have to step up. They know that everybody's going to have to do something, be motivated, want to be there. Well, they got some help on Tuesday night as well, motivationally. Iowa State guard Jared Hufford had some words for Texas. I'm gonna read you his full quote, word for word here. So it goes, "It's going to be one heck of a farewell present. They're going to come in here on senior night in the dark. I don't think they really know what's going to be coming for them. We've beaten them 4 out of the last 5 times at home. They don't have a good record here. They get all the 5-star recruits and have all the nicest stuff in the world, and they just think they don't stink. They're just humans, and that's how I see them. They're people that have such a high ego that need to be checked." Well, Chip, I think that's an interesting thing to say as an offensive lineman before you go up against Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy on the interior. But at the same time, is this something that the Longhorns needed? Did they need to have this fire lit under them to say, okay, now we're going to come out and give you our best ball and not just try to cruise control the way to the Big 12 title game?
Yeah, I think they needed this, and I think they need their coaches to keep this defense in attack mode. Having some bulletin board material, and that's Jalen Ford responded to this on social media by saying bulletin board material. And so, JT Sanders responded to it. Jahdae Barron responded to it. So I think, first of all, Jared Hufford is going to either go down as a legend in Iowa State football history or as the guy who may have just given Texas that little extra edge and focus they needed to go up to Ames and make sure that they end a 2-game losing streak up there. And yeah, Jared said they'd lost 4 of 5 in Ames. It's 3 of 4. Now, if he's right and they have a farewell present for Texas, it will be 4 of 5. But let's go first things first here. I do think this is a good little edge setter for the Texas defense, and then the coaches can help by keeping that Texas defense in attack mode, not playing softer coverage, not playing zone coverage that Texas. And look, I should have probably addressed this when we were talking about the defense, Tommy, but in talking to Jahdae Barron, I said, the communication, you guys always say the communication on the defensive side is you got to get cleaned up. Well, part of it is because they rotate at safety so much. Even Jahdae Barron said to me, yeah, I'll find myself telling things to Jaron Thompson, and then Jaron Thompson will say to me, hey, make sure you tell the other guys. Make sure you tell Taff and Derek Williams and Keaton Crawford. And Jahdae Barron was like, yeah, I got to tell all these guys because they don't know who's in from play to play. This is on Blake Gideon for rotating the safeties. And they all have to make sure they know exactly what the left and the right hand are doing because it's been a problem, obviously, since the Houston game. People are targeting the Texas safeties over the middle of the field, and they're having success. So I think all of that comes into play here. But look, bottom line is Quinn Ewers, he's got to make really smart decisions against a really tough defense. Take what's there. Don't press it. Don't go for the deep ball if it's at all in question, because that's what Iowa State wants you to do. They're baiting you into that. They're also baiting you to run. So, look, Texas has the weapons to beat this defense in Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, and Iowa State's offense has not seen a defensive line like this. And the guy who may have been pissed off the most by Jared Hufford is Ethan Burke, because that dude has got that nasty streak, and we know that how disruptive he is. He had that huge strip sack against Kansas State. So, look, I have to go to Ames. I mean, I'm going to Ames for this game, and I'm actually now excited about it because we've got a little bit of a prize fight going on here.
Absolutely. Should be a good one in store over there for you, Chipster. All right. Now everybody's favorite part of the show, game predictions. As usual, you go ahead first.
Oh, I go first again? All right, I always go first. All right, so like I said, Tommy, I think this is going to be close throughout. Now, would Texas fans love a break from chugging their Tums while watching the Longhorns? Yes. If Texas could somehow pull off a 30-7 win like Iowa State did to Texas the last time Texas was in Ames, prompting the Bo Davis rant, the Texas defensive line coach screaming at the top of his lungs, "Y'all think this is funny?" You'd love to put Matt Campbell into that situation. But I think this one's going to be close throughout. And I think Texas is going to have to stay laser focused, kind of like what we saw when they played Wyoming earlier in the year. Alabama was back and forth. I think that's the kind of game that we're going to be watching Saturday night. And again, Quinn Ewers is essential. His wisdom, his experience against this defense, knowing when to take what in the passing game, and then getting the most out of this CJ Baxter, Jaden Blue combination. But I can see this being a Burt Auburn game-winning field goal. Texas 23, Iowa State 21.
All right, a close one again. I think we both predicted close ones last week too, right? Or
well, I thought Texas was finally going to put the pedal down because I thought defensively they'd be able to get after Josh Hoover. So I was wrong in I said they'd cover. They didn't cover.
Okay, well, that's all right.
This week I'm saying Texas will not cover.
Yeah, I'm sticking there with you too, Chip. Somebody asked on the mailbag earlier this week, whether or not Texas would build up that first half lead and then just kind of let it slip away again. I said no, because I don't think they're going to build up a lead to begin with where they can let it slip away. You mentioned that earlier too, Chip. I think this is I wouldn't say a heavyweight bout. I think Iowa State's a great program, but I wouldn't consider them a heavyweight. It's just going to be a great fight between two very good teams, very well-coached teams. That's just going to be punch, counter punch. And whoever lands that final punch, I think, is going to win this ball game. And I think Texas finds a way. You can say that they have blown the leads and they've let teams come back and they've put the pedal off the gas in the second half. But what you can say is that they've lost those games because they've won all but one of them. They've won all those close games this year except for Oklahoma. So they know how to win. They find a way to finish. And I think they do that again here in the toughest environment left on this regular season schedule in Ames. A very difficult place to play, a place where they've had a lot of trouble playing before. But I think they find a way. I'm going to slight deficit too. I'm going Texas 20, Iowa State 17. But should be a really good one on our hands on Saturday night. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 game preview. As always, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you are the first to know when new content heads your way. For Chip Brown and the rest of the Horns 24/7 crew, I'm Tommy Yarsh. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.